Hello guys and welcome back. Sorry if I'm a bit out of breath, I just did loads of press ups. It's that quarantine workout. Today we're going to be talking about the straight 7 system and how that works. So many people believe that they need to be a straight 10 in every single department in order to attract women. So they believe that they need to be like a 10 in looks, 10 in physicality in terms of like physique. They think they need to be like a 10 in intelligence, a 10 in success. They need to know like a million languages, just all of these things combined together to be the perfect guy in order to attract women. The truth is, and this revolves around the straight 7 system, is you just need to be well above average. So let's say a 5 is average, you go up one level to a 6, slightly above average, you go up to a 7, that's well above average. Once you get to an 8, that's great, like kind of greatness, or that outlier male sort of stage. 9 is like nearly perfect, 10 is perfect, right? So suddenly a 7 looks pretty good. That's well above average, bordering on outlier male in that category. Now, on its own, if you were just a 7 in terms of looks and the rest of the categories like a 1, wouldn't really work too well. It might do in some smaller towns, but it wouldn't work that well. Ideally what you need to be a 7 in every single one of those categories, or as many as you can get. So if you were, let's start from the top. Let's say you were a 7 in looks, right? So you're not Jason Momoa, but in terms of every guy on the street, you're 2 notches above average. So you're an eye catcher. Women might double take, they might look, certain girls might say, I like him, he's hot. But you're not Mr. Standout. I think that's easily achievable with orthotropics, correct haircuts and styling and taking care of your skin and fitness, etc. Now let's say in terms of your body. You might not have, let's say, the physique of LeBron James or Anthony Joshua. But you could, every guy can get in the gym and work relentlessly on their body. Depending on regardless of size, regardless of height, regardless of ectomorph, endomorph, whatever, every guy can get themselves to a 7 in their own category. So like I said, you don't need to have the body of Anthony Joshua, which is probably a 10. You scale that down to a 9, you've probably got some Instagram models. You scale that down to an 8, you might have, maybe some of those underwear models that work for some of the cheaper brands. Or your local guy who is pretty shredded, wouldn't be able to be an influencer, but is pretty shredded or in great shape. And you think, wow, that's impressive. You go down one step from that, that's where I think every guy can achieve. Kind of good shape, where maybe, it's not mind-blowing and people are just like, yeah, so-and-so's in great shape. So-and-so's got a good body. If he keeps going, he could do something, professionally or whatever, but I think anybody can get to that stage where it's just like consistent training, 4 to 5 days per week, an hour a day, and a clean diet. That should just be part of your normal day anyway. That should just be taking it in your stride. So I think any guy can get to that 7 in terms of that level. Now, in terms of intelligence, so you might, not everyone's going to be born Elon Musk, which is probably the level 10 that we're talking about here. You scale that down again, you got the 9, which is kind of like your, let's say, a top level scientist or your local genius. You scale that down again to like an 8. That would probably be like a maths professor or something in a university. You scale that down again to like a 7. And you've got somebody who people would be like, wow, I'd take that person on a quiz show. Somebody who is intelligent among the masses. That's what I think. And I think anybody can achieve that through experience in life. You definitely get smarter over time. I think number 2, reading a ton of books. I think number 3, you could learn 2 or 3 languages over your lifetime. All of these things and cultural experiences, they will culminate to create a man who people consider maybe a 7 out of 10 in terms of intelligence. And that's definitely a tick box in an attraction sense. Now, in a success sense, let's say at the top you've got Jeff Bezos, a 10, or anybody who's in a billionaire level. Below that, you might have professional athletes that are getting paid like $250,000 a week. They might have a net worth of like 100 mil. Below that, you might have those millionaires that are like 1 to 10 million, 1 to 25 million, and they're earning like $250,000 per year. And then you've got the next level down, which is the 7, where I think this is where any guy can achieve, where you're earning 6 figures per year and you have a net worth of like a few 100,000 to $1 million. So like 700,000-800,000 in your bank account. Your house might not be a mansion, but your house is, actually let's do assets separately. So assets, that can be a 7 too. So you look at somebody who's got a giant house, like a Drake type house, you know, enormous, beautiful house. I think everyone's seen his latest video. That house looks ridiculous. And that's probably a 10, right? So you scale that down to a 9. You've probably got something like a 5-10 million pound condo or something, or big apartment, like a penthouse building in New York. Scale that down again to like an 8. You might have like a beautiful country home that's worth about $1 million. Scale that down again, you've got a house that's like 500,000 to about 800,000. There's something around that range. And I just think that's 7 across the board. I think if you can achieve that in all these areas of life, and that should be your aim, you know, because achieving a 10 in any of these areas is tough. A lot of it comes down to genetics. Some of it is a bit of luck. Some of it is just, you know, you were born as an Elon Musk. You're just a super genius, right? And your life just mapped out this way. But for the average guy, I think the average guy could easily achieve a 7 in all of these areas. So we'll always look at what a 10 is, depending on what you want to achieve in life. Scale it back. Keep going down the levels. Find what average is. Bring it up. And then find that middle ground. So what has everybody got? What has nobody got? What's about a 7? Roughly in the middle of that. That is the level where I think you do become. I think outlier male is 8, but I think at a 7 consistently, you become an outlier male. I think you become a top 5% man. So a man who's got an unbelievable body, or like let's just go with 7s, okay? A guy who's a 7 in shape, a 7 in intelligence, a 7 in looks, a 7 in wealth, a 7 in assets, a 7 in, let's say, cultural experiences, let's say a 7 in personality. You know, you add all of these things up and you're like, wow, you a 7 in the way he dresses. You add all of these things up and you think, collectively, that guy might be more valuable or have more social value than maybe a male model. You know, a guy who's got an unbelievable body, a beautiful face, but hasn't really done a lot with his life. Maybe he's quite lazy, lacks personality, has no sense of humor. You know, I think women would rather be with that guy as a straight 7 across the board, making the most of himself in every area, than the guy who's a 10 in 2 areas and like a 2 in all the other areas. You know, if you added up the whole score, that guy definitely has more social value. And I think a lot of guys get too carried away and say, oh, you know, I don't look like Brad Pitt. Fuck, I'm not going to be able to get women. I don't think that's the point, guys. I think the point is to make the best of yourselves in all areas. And that doesn't just mean, you know, to just be the kind of average. You know, when people just say, I'll make the best of yourself, just be you. It's like, no, you can still thrive. A 7 is still like, wow, this is thriving. Like a 7 in wealth, 6 figures a year, 200, 300,000 in your bank account, and a house that's worth 600,000. I think a lot of people would shake your hand and take that deal and say, yeah, that's like, I'm happy with that life, right? And I think all of these things are massively achievable across your whole life, easily achievable. And more guys need to realize that regardless of where they start, they might not be able to become a 10, but a 7 is right there. It's achievable for anybody who wants to put the work in. And you can tick all of those boxes effortlessly. So anybody who's discouraged, just go for the straight 7 system. Write down all the areas of life that you want to be great in and aim for a 7 in all of those areas. And then once you've achieved that, or even before, you can probably vision it, put all of those areas together and then look at it as a complete picture. I guarantee you'll sit there and go, wow, that's a good man. That's a very high level man. And in terms of attracting women, a guy who has got straight 7s across the board will clean up.